The taxi ride that changed everything. Picture this: a young Bernard Arnault steps into a New York City taxi in the early 1980s. The driver, noticing his French accent, starts gushing about his love for French culture. Arnault, curious, asks, "Do you know the name of France's president?" The driver replies, "No, but I know Christian Dior." That moment was a lightning bolt for Arnault. It crystallized his belief in the transcendent power of luxury brands, a lesson that would define his career. Arnault has recounted this story to the public countless times, often describing it as a moment of clarity that steered him towards creating a conglomerate built on the pillars of luxury and heritage. Today, Arnault isn't just the CEO of LVMH, the world's largest luxury conglomerate. He's a master strategist who turned heritage into hypergrowth. Let's unpack how a piano prodigy from northern France became the wolf in cashmere and rewrote the rules of leadership. Over the past 40 years, Arnault has assembled the world's largest luxury conglomerate and is one of the richest people in the world with an estimated net worth close to $200 billion. Welcome back to Leaders, a podcast dedicated to exploring the best leaders this world has ever seen, and your number one source for actionable business leadership insights. So we will cover LVMH and the leader of LVMH, Bernard Arnault, in this episode. And he basically goes from bankruptcy to billions. And so what were the career moments that helped define that? Let's start with the Christian Dior gamble in 1984. Arnault's first power play, acquiring the bankrupt Buffett Group for $15 million, which owned Christian Dior. A summary high level is that he fired 9,000 workers, sold non-core assets, and funneled resources really into reviving Dior. Critics called him the Terminator, but sales soared from 90 million euros to 9.5 billion under his watch. At just 35, he orchestrated a masterful acquisition that would lay the foundation for the luxury empire, taking that 15 million of his family's money and combining it with 45 from Lazard. Arnault purchased the bankrupt Buffett textile empire. And now the strategic turnaround that he helped orchestrate was the Christian Dior fashion house. After acquiring control, he earned that nickname, the Terminator, through ruthless efficiency. He sold off non-core textile operations for $500 million and really focused intensely on revitalizing just the Dior brand. Results speak for themselves. Within just 2 years, he transformed it into a thriving enterprise, achieving $2 billion in revenue over time, generating over $100 million in profits, and using the proceeds to begin acquiring stakes in LVMH. The initial $15 million investment proved transformative, catapulting him from a family construction business operator to a luxury industry titan. And by January 1989, before his 40th birthday, he had gained control of LVMH and owned some of the most prestigious French luxury brands, including Dior, Givenchy, Moet Hennessy, and Louis Vuitton. Really, the lesson with that acquisition and the Dior gamble was that ruthless prioritization creates focus. After that, the LVMH coup, 1987 to 1989, Arnault exploited a feud between Louis Vuitton and Moet Hennessy executives to seize control of the newly merged LVMH. He really outmaneuvered Henri Racamier, Louis Vuitton's patriarch, in a corporate battle dubbed a duel to the death. By 1989, he owned 43.5% of LVMH, a stake now worth over $200 billion. So how did that come about? The epic power struggle for LVMH control in the late 1980s showcases his masterful strategic maneuvering. Here's the dramatic breakdown of that. The initial merger. So in June 1987, Louis Vuitton and Moet Hennessy completed a $4 billion merger with Alain Chevalier as chairman and Henry Racamier as executive vice president. However, tensions quickly emerged as the Vuitton family controlling stake dropped from 60 to just 17% in that combined entity. So there's really a power triangle here. Situation had a complex three-way battle. Racamier, who was really seeking to strengthen his position, invited Bernard to acquire LVMH shares. Chevalier, countering his move, allied with Guinness, exchanging 12% of shares. And then Arnault, playing kind of both sides, orchestrated a brilliant takeover. And the masterstroke that he had within all this is in a stunning display of what could be viewed as corporate chess. Arnault partnered with Lazard Frères and Guinness to secure a 45% controlling stake, and he gained support from both families, both Moet and Hennessy, outmaneuvering both Chevalier and Racamier in legal battles. So the aftermath of that really was by 1990, Racamier resigned after losing the court battle, while Arnault emerged victorious. At 43 now, Arnault had gained control of France's largest publicly owned company, transforming it into a $5 billion luxury empire with a market cap of $10 billion at that time. The corporate saga demonstrated his exceptional ability to turn rivals against each other while positioning himself as the ultimate victor, earning him his reputation as a very formidable strategic leader. And really the lesson there out of this story was strategic alliances are temporary, control is permanent, that he sought to gain, and he did. And so where does that take us then? The next career-defining moment for Arnault was the Gucci wars of the 1990s. So really the failed hostile takeover of Gucci revealed Arnault's sort of playbook: acquire, empower creatives, and scale. Though he lost Gucci to rival Francois Pinault, he walked away with the $700 million profit. Later acquired Fendi and Bulgari. So in 1999, he orchestrated that dramatic kind of takeover attempt of Gucci, showcasing aggressive acquisition style and rare strategic miscalculation. So the initial strike, Arnault began with a seemingly friendly 5% stake in Gucci, presenting it as a passive investment. Within weeks, he rapidly increased LVMH's ownership to 34.4%, strategically staying just below that 35% threshold that would have triggered Tom Ford's resignation clause. The power play really within this that Arnault had tactics included acquiring Prada's 9.5% stake for $398 million and accumulating shares from various investors to reach 26.7%, and then also demanding board seats proportional to LVMH's ownership. The fatal miscalculation, though, within his tactics and his overconfidence led to really three critical mistakes. One, rejecting Gucci CEO De Sol's compromise offer of 2 board seats for reducing stake to 20%. Second, he refused to sign a standstill agreement by the February 17th deadline. And finally, he underestimated Gucci's willingness to find alternative partners. So that defeat, the battle concluded sort of on September 9th, 2001, when Arnault was forced to sell his shares to Francois Pinault's PPR, now Keurig, for $806 million. While LVMH made a profit on the share sales, the failed takeover represented one of Arnault's rare strategic defeats, ultimately strengthening his rival Pinault's luxury empire. That really demonstrated that even the most successful business leaders can be outmaneuvered when they overplay their hand. And we've talked about a lot of the different failures and challenges that a lot of these business leaders, CEOs, and the people that we study go through. It's not always a straight line to all the success. So even those losses can really be wins with the right exit strategy is the lesson there. And one final bigger moment within Arnault's career before we kind of unveil his sort of leadership playbook within all of this is the Tiffany triumph in 2021. So after a bitter legal fight during COVID-19, Arnault acquired Tiffany for $15.8 billion, securing dominance in the high jewelry industry. Renegotiated the deal mid-pandemic, proving adaptability amid the crisis. And he orchestrated that, showing his strategic brilliance, long-term vision. That strategic pursuit he began in November 2019, and he announced its agreement to acquire Tiffany for $16.2 billion, $135 per share, marking the largest deal in luxury history. He really viewed Tiffany as a sleeping beauty, a brand with tremendous potential that had failed to capitalize on the recent jewelry market uptick. Acquisition rationale for him was clear. Jewelry was one of the fastest growing segments in luxury with high barriers to entry. LVMH sought to strengthen its relatively small jewelry division. Tiffany's wide price range could attract younger shoppers, and then the American brand would boost LVMH's presence in the U.S. market specifically. So some masterful negotiation when COVID-19 hit in 2020. He demonstrated his negotiation skills by calling off the acquisition in September, citing closing date delays, engaging in a legal battle then with Tiffany, and then ultimately renegotiating the price down to $131.5 per share in October of 2020. He saved approximately $430 million through that maneuver, even went as far as building a Louis Vuitton factory in Texas and inviting then President Trump to the opening ceremony, ensure that there would be no government roadblocks to the acquisition. And that transformation strategy, after completing the acquisition in January of 2021, Arnault deployed his proven playbook, appointing his son Alexander to help guide the jeweler's growth. He implemented significant price increases. He invested heavily in marketing with celebs like Beyonce and Jay-Z. Spent $350 million renovating the flagship Fifth Avenue store, and finally set some ambitious sales targets to drive growth. And then the early results after acquisition, by late 2022, he revealed that their profit had doubled since the acquisition. So just basically 2 years after acquiring it, which is crazy. Just the pricing power that he was able to exhibit there. So Tiffany, for the first time, will exceed 1 billion euros in profit from recurring operations. We were barely at half that when we acquired the business, he said. Annual sales increased by about $1.5 billion since that acquisition. The flagship Manhattan store reportedly quadrupled sales under LVMH's ownership. There are some still ongoing challenges despite those successes. The acquisition, the jewelry industry has really experienced a slowdown. Some stores have struggled to meet ambitious sales targets. Employee turnover has been higher than industry averages. Tiffany has lost market share to competitors like Cartier. He's always counseled patience, though. I'm very confident about Tiffany, he says, but it takes time. You cannot do things instantly. That really reflects his long-term approach. So the Tiffany acquisition exemplified his leadership philosophy of identifying undervalued assets with strong heritage, applying strategic vision, making bold moves, and having the patience to see transformations through to completion. It also taught him a important lesson around negotiation is not always about winning. It's about securing legacy. So let's now dive, after covering a lot of his key moments in business success and what leadership lessons he learned from those. Let's flesh that out more from his overall leadership playbook here. So it's his leadership isn't just about the deals that he's making, and a lot of the M&A and ones that we just covered, Tiffany, Gucci, the other luxury brands, and the conglomerate that he is building, that is certainly part of how he shaped leadership. But it's more of a philosophy. And so he was a visionary, first and foremost. He saw the wealth increase before no one else and transformed it into an empire, really creating this idea of a luxury market and the idea that over time, people's wealth was going to continue to increase, and therefore, from his standpoint, the pricing power that he could exhibit was always going to be there. The first philosophy from his playbook that we will go through really is the orchestra conductor sort of philosophy. So his most famous leadership principle is this approach, which goes further than simple delegation. So as a kind of conductor within the business, he's allowing each brand to play its unique instrument while ensuring overall harmony. He's also maintaining strict quality control through unannounced store visits worldwide. We see that as a common theme, again, of a lot of the leaders that we are studying. They are going into their stores. They are in the business. They are seeing the day-to-day. That is a differentiator between some of these successful leaders and maybe those that don't achieve the success that Arnault and a lot of these other 43 leaders that we have covered have. He also balances creative autonomy with commercial viability, creating synergies between the brands with really out homogenizing them is a key part of this philosophy as well. So that approach enables LVMH to successfully manage over 75 distinct luxury houses while maintaining their individual identities and excellence. That is not an easy thing to do. Another philosophy or doctrine as part of his leadership playbook is the talent first doctrine. Arnault's unconventional approach to talent management reveals his long-term thinking. His philosophy is hire exceptional talent before defining their roles. This strategy manifests in several ways. So hiring that talent, even if you don't have like an opening per se for this role and this person's going to fit into that role, he's more of the philosophy that if I encounter someone that is going to fit into my business in some way, let's hire them, let's get that top talent, and we'll figure out a role and responsibility that they will fit into that will have the most impact. And again, I think this has parallels to how some of the other leaders that we've studied have thought about talent being a very important quality as part of the team and the leadership philosophies of these business leaders. They know that the people running these businesses, the day-to-day people, they need to be attracting and retaining top talent. And so Arnault, with this talent first doctrine, is manifesting his strategy in several ways. So one being recruiting star designers and executives even without immediate positions. He's also believing it's better to have brilliant people on your team than risk them joining the competition. Giving creative directors significant autonomy while maintaining also strict financial oversight. And finally, creating an environment where creativity thrives alongside commercial success. Definitely has a sort of what we would call a relentless pursuit of perfection. So the perfectionist's paradox, or as this philosophy demonstrates his unique approach to excellence manifesting really through creating an environment that actively refuses to accept mediocrity, so having a high quality bar there, pushing back against good enough thinking, maintaining uncompromising standards while avoiding rigid perfectionism, balancing preservation of heritage with innovation. So that approach really was, I think, the most evident in his revival of Christian Dior, where he transformed a struggling brand into a global powerhouse by maintaining the heritage while also being able to modernize its appeal. More on the creator sense that we reference back within the talent and the orchestrator philosophy. So that creative, empowering paradox. So he gave designers, as some examples, Louis Vuitton from Pharrell Williams, and then Maria Grazia Chiori of Dior, unparalleled freedom while enforcing that strict financial discipline. Artists must be unfettered by commercial concerns, he says. And so yet LVMH's operating margins still exceed 25%. So I think conventionally, if you give a lot of these designers the creative freedom to do what they want, they're going to be costly. They are going to come up with a lot of ideas that typically cost a lot of money. And so to be able to have the designers be at their best, exercising creative freedom, but then also being able to have those visions and creatives then translate into products that they can sell for more is exceptional. In addition to that, with the decentralized control of LVMH, the 75 plus brands operating autonomously, he holds sort of monthly brand audits. At Dior, he once spent 3 hours debating the angle of a handbag strap. God is in the details, he insists. And he made a bunch of comments that were very, very detail-oriented. His son says, Alexander says, about the chairs in the stores and the shoes the salespeople were wearing. Things that you wouldn't typically notice, but once you've seen tens of thousands of stores over the years, I think it's what comes to your mind immediately. And so let's tie this back maybe to some people that we've already studied and some parallels I think we can see very readily within Bernard and some of the leaders that we've covered already. So back on episode 19, we covered Sam Walton of Walmart fame. And so I think there's a lot of parallels between Bernard and Sam. And we can first start with strategic acquisitions. So both of those entrepreneurs built their empires through strategic acquisitions of particularly struggling businesses. So Arnault acquiring that Boussac in 1984, keeping only Christian Dior and transforming that into a very profitable venture. Conversely, Walton started with a single Ben Franklin store, gradually acquiring and transforming struggling stores into successful ops. Business innovation, too, both had pioneering approaches. Walton transforming American retail by pioneering the idea of discount stores in rural areas, implementing innovative inventory management system. As part of that playbook, Arnault really revolutionizing luxury retail by decentralizing ops and emphasizing brand heritage while maintaining that strict cost and financial control. On that cost management side, I think both leaders, too, maintain that strict control over the expenses. Arnault really has that nickname of the Terminator for his aggressive cost-cutting measures and business turnaround strategies, and then Walton was known for his frugality and focus on keeping costs low to pass savings along to the consumers. Leadership style as well, I would say, is fairly similar. Arnault, known for his hands-on approach on management and deep involvement in the day-to-day operations. Walton started his workdays at 4:30 and maintained direct oversight of his ops, demanding results from the team. They also both had a growth strategy, both built their businesses really on four different things: systematic expansion, focusing on the underserved markets, strong emphasis on customer value, and then continuous reinvestment into their companies. In addition to Walton, I think we can draw parallels here to John D. Rockefeller, and we covered him on episode 31. So let's go through here some similarities I see as well within Bernard and Rockefeller. One is strategic vision and control. So I think both leaders have exceptional strategic thinking, control, prioritizing complete control really over their business operations through vertical integration. Both also focused on long-term success rather than short-term gains, and also maintain strict oversight of operations through that hands-on management. Both also had a level of emotional intelligence, both mastering their emotions, maintaining remarkable composure in a lot of different challenging situations, also developing an eerie self-control that gave them the edge in business dealings, known for their calm demeanor when confronting and negotiating, which is really important. From a management or a leadership philosophy standpoint, too, there's some similarities between Rockefeller and Arnault. Arnault has that hands-on leadership. Rockefeller also the same, regularly visiting operations, speaking with employees, carrying notebooks and collecting feedback from workers, and then both valued sitting in the middle of meetings rather than at the head of the table to maintain balance within the meetings. Excellence and innovation, so they both had a commitment to quality and improvement, maintaining uncompromising standards across their operations, consistently investing in innovation and new technologies, and then also focusing on efficiency and cost management to maintain competitive advantages. A lot of different things around crisis management as well. So really viewing and tackling problems as opportunities versus kind of being scared off or doing the normal thing of kind of surviving. They saw that more as an area or a time to kind of capitalize on things. So lots of different similarities between Walton, Rockefeller, a few of the other leaders too, but definitely important to highlight. There's some qualities here from a leadership standpoint that they share, and each one is just going about it within their industry, within the tactics of how they got there as far as being really successful in different ways. You see that, within the Walton and his cheaper sort of retail strategy versus Arnault is deploying some of the same tactics, but just from a luxury standpoint, so the direct sort of opposite. One other quality I would say that Arnault possesses that's unique is his vision and long-term view. So Arnault's vision for LVMH was therefore arguably both unique and revolutionary. He understood that the true strength of a luxury brand lay not only in its individual identity, but also in the potential synergies across a diversified portfolio. By acquiring a diverse range of high-end brands, he created a conglomerate that could pool resources, share expertise, and then benefit from economies of scale. That integrated approach allowed LVMH to streamline ops, reduce costs, and enhance brand values simultaneously. For instance, share of distribution channels and marketing efforts meant that smaller brands could leverage the power of LVMH's extensive network, gaining visibility and market penetration that would have been impossible on their own. That then led them to dominate pretty much every part of the luxury market. A quote from Jean-Jacques Guillon, who was LVMH's CFO for 20 years, from the company's Q2 2023 earnings call. He says, the top three priorities are desirability, and desirability, and this doesn't change. All our energy is focused on increasing the desirability of the brands. So then how do you create and reproduce that desirability? The LVMH process has one goal: star brands. According to Arnault, star brands are born only when a company manages to make products that speak to the ages but feel intensely modern. Mastering the paradox of star brands is very difficult and rare, Arnault notes. Fortunately. So that kind of caps off his leadership playbook. Also, similar to a few other leaders, his background is more from an engineering by training standpoint, demanding, wants to move fast. He's always betting on talent. A lot of these other similarities we've seen with leaders that we've hashed out here. Final section here, mentors and heroes, and one of the ones of Arnault's kind of North Star here is Warren Buffett. So Arnault calls him a mentor, both acquired failing textile firms and preached long-term views. In 2022, after Arnault raised LVMH's CEO retirement age to 80, Buffett wrote, "You should have made it 100. Great leaders age like wine." Based on the business approach and leadership style, Arnault probably closely resembles Warren the most of perhaps arguably any other business leader in several different aspects. So one is kind of on the investment philosophy. They're both kind of focused on acquiring high quality, enduring brands with strong heritage. From a management style, they both also are decentralized leaders, both practicing a hands-on yet decentralized approach, excel at identifying and retaining talent. Value creation, their approach to building value shows kind of striking parallels, both focused on companies with strong competitive advantages, market positions, emphasizing sustainable growth over those short-term gains. Strategic visions and their crisis management are a few other qualities that I think they share. In addition to that, their business principles, so common characteristics that both Warren and Bernard share within that is viewing problems as opportunities, maintaining strict financial discipline with understanding their industries deeply, and excelling at balancing creativity with financial performance. In addition to that, his mother, also Marie Josephine Savinel, was a pianist obsessed with Dior perfumes. She instilled his love for artistry. Arnault still credits her for his quote-unquote nose for timeless elegance. Gianni Agnelli, who is a Fiat titan, inspiring his blend of industrial rigor and aristocratic flair. Agnelli was the epitome of power with panache. He reflects. One other mentor to highlight here is Anton Bernheim of Lazard, and so he helped him acquire financier Agache in 1984, helped him win a bidding war for Boussac, textile and retail conglomerate that owned Christian Dior that we mentioned before. So his relationship with Anton was transformative to his career, with Bernheim really serving as his most influential mentor and the architect of his rise in business. He acknowledged his importance, stating that Anton was a mentor. He was a faithful companion, a sage, a friend. Their relationship began in the mid-1980s when he was managing partner at the French investment bank Lazard Frères. From Bernheim, he learned a lot of different lessons. Strategic patience. So when Bernard spotted LVMH's shares plummeting 50% during the 1987 stock market crisis and wanted to launch an immediate raid, Bernheim wisely advised him to wait until they come looking for you. Financial structuring, he taught him about sophisticated deal-making techniques that became the foundation of his acquisition strategy. Relationship building, he demonstrated the importance of cultivating powerful networks in banking, politics, and business. Opportunity recognition. So Bernheim showed him how to identify some undervalued assets with tremendous potential. And really that Boussac acquisition was a defining moment that really launched his luxury empire. When Bernheim called the then unknown Arnault to join a company bailout, he presented an opportunity that would change both their lives. That bankrupt Boussac owned a rundown fashion house called Dior. The deal required $80 million, with Lazard financing over 80% and Arnault contributing $15 million of his own funds. Bernheim saw potential in Arnault when few others did, really, in this deal. As Bernheim later recalled in a 2011 interview, when he first met Arnault, the young businessman had 3 francs 6 sous, meaning very little money. Yet Bernheim took a chance on him, recognizing something special in the ambitious young man from the north of France. Obviously, that story really illustrates the great mentorship of Anton and really changing Bernard's trajectory there by not just providing some capital, but also some opportunity, guidance, and belief in their potential. So what can we really learn from Bernard, who turned luxury into a science? I think we can learn heritage is your superpower, but only if you reinvent it. Second, he empowered creatives, but guarded the bottom line. And he's also can learn that succession isn't an event, it's a decades-long chess game. So with his family and who will kind of be in the succession planning for LVMH and Bernard, that is also mentioned, and there's lots of different family members that are instrumental and within a lot of the different brands that Bernard owns in key leadership positions too. So as we've mentioned with a lot of these leaders, their legacy and such can be measured to some extent by the succession planning and what leaders and people that they develop underneath them that eventually run the brand that either they create or they helped to grow. So it seems as though Bernard has no signs of slowing down, no signs of retiring anytime soon, but it seems as though he has a great plan in place and definitely has built quite the luxury empire here that is definitely deserved to be studied extensively, as he has amassed a wealth to become one of the most wealthy people on the planet today. So with that, that will be episode 44 on Bernard Arnault, and we will be back here soon for episode 45. Thanks for listening.